Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Practical Autodidactics. My name is Yuri Besarab. I will put the phone here attached. Sorry. So there was a question after the previous program on how to continue learning just any subject. So, and I decided to develop like a certain algorithm, or to develop a toolbox for you to carry it and to use it whenever it is applicable, whenever you have an opportunity or you feel the sense of it. So I remember that Kurinsky once told that a human is a skill. That was very interesting to hear from him a long time ago, because it encourages us to think, okay, if a human is a skill, so what is a skill? I have a definition for you. I believe it is very instrumental. So a skill is a sum of creatively repeated movements. So repetition in post-psychological autodidactics is a very broad subject. And but I will not dwell on this, and quite possible that I touched this issue in the previous program. So, but the word, the concept that we need to take from this program is, or there are several points we need to take from this video, and that is about movement. So we take a couple of thoughts. The first one is from Aristotle, that a movement, any movement, can be divided into three stages. The first stage is preparation, second stage is performance or execution, and then there is relaxation, and very often relaxation turns into preparation. So the three stages, we need to remember about this. Here I wrote it down for you. The other philosopher that I would like to remember here in the program, that is Baruch Spinoza, Dutch philosopher. And he said that movement is a morphological organ of a human being, of a man. So if we realize this, morphological means that the form can be changed. So if we look at all our movements from this standpoint, then we just like acquire an instrument on which we can work, especially if we know what Aristotle said. And then remember that we need to create, for us to have those lots of those movements. To acquire skill, we need to repeat those movements creatively. And for us to do that, we need to have the second point here in this video, and that is about culturological, I didn't put it completely here, culturological group of subjects. For example, if we learn a language, just let's take one, let's take this. This will represent a language, one language. For us to learn one language, it would take lots of time, lots of I don't know what to say, but it's very boring at the same time to learn one subject and full on. So for us to do it, we would need to have, let's say, 500 textbooks on a language. If it's, let's say, French, we need to have 500 books, because we are made by nature in such a way that it becomes boring. Like anything we do becomes boring in 5, sometimes in 3 minutes, and sometimes in 1 minute. But the span of the interest to the subject is very short, and we adapt very quickly. And so the moment of boring is very close if we deal just only with one subject. You can look at the kids. As soon as they go to the school, they speak about boredom. So. And I don't mean anything bad about or against the teachers, but the system of education is made in a way that the lessons dedicated to, or let's say time, lots of time dedicated to a subject are very long. And our education system is not adjusted at all to respond to the interest of kids, and also to this flowing nature fluctuation nature of a human or of interest, and also that we adapt very quickly to anything. So Kurinsky developed a solution. He suggested to introduce additional subjects. If it's French, so let's add here, let's put it here, French, right? French. So if we add here German, for example, and then somewhere here Spanish, I assume that you speak English, Spanish or Italian, so we already can switch from one to the other very quickly. As soon as we have the interest on a certain plateau, we need to a certain level, it's better, and the level is felt. It's in our soul, it's in our let's say in our body. We feel it when it is interesting to us. Something is interesting to us. So as soon as we feel that there's a peak of that interest, so we need to switch to the other subject, to the other. And if we introduce also here music and philosophy, we will, and those both subjects are very influential, are very important for people. That's why they will also develop our mind in a way that we will enjoy the learning process. And we will have more subjects around which we can develop our skill, by the way, and around which we can work. So this is about cultural group of subjects. Next point important for this program is introspection. If we don't practice introspection, introspection is when we don't observe, let's say in this case, movements and also the growth of our skill, then we are not different from animals. Animals are wonderful creatures, but we are not animals. And so that's why introspection, it's very brief. There is a lot in post-psychology of Kurinsky about this, but this is not the program about that. This is just about algorithm, and so it's very important to observe the skill, the growth of the skill. To help you with this, all of this, to make it more applicable, I will use again one more here, this list of stages of learning something. I will use it again, and I will try to make it very practical. Look, there are 5 stages of acquiring, or let's say of mastering a certain subject. I will speak about the languages when we learn languages at the very beginning. So the first stage is when we need to understand the structure of our speech apparatus, how it works, how it moves, what we have available. Then focusing in different languages because they are different, and also we need to understand the position of the tongue. So these are important issues, very important points. Before we start even working on the movements, sounds, or in other words, pronunciation as they say it. So as soon as we have all of that, we start working on the movements, on this stage, movements, and then from those movements we make sounds, yes? They come out of us. The second stage, when we already worked on this stage for 2-3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks, and then we start working on the word movements. This is when we already connect separate elements, separate sounds, when we connect them into words, and we can pronounce them more or less well. This is the second stage, and this stage we start working on and developing those word lists and working on them also. This is a very interesting stage in learning anything. So in this case we speak about learning languages. Then the third stage, when we already trained our speech apparatus on this stage, we can read certain passages, not long passages, but short or long passages of text. And here we introduce so-called linguistic reading. I spoke about that in in the other video, so you can watch in more details about this. But we introduced also linguistic reading on this stage, which develops our like reading in big big and long text. Here, the first stage, simultaneous reading and understanding, which we start already reading text, reading books, classical literature. Lots of pleasure on this stage is waiting for us. And here, practical application. This is when we can apply our language skills to something practical, when we can write ourselves, when we can read, when we can use in our job. So this is like a practical application. Let's look at the same algorithm, but how it works with musicians. A musician, for example, someone who would like to learn music. So the first stage, they need to decide on instrument. And not just one instrument, but several instruments. 3 at least. It's better to have 3. Usually they train like piano and any other instruments that you like. That is a classical approach. But if you take one more instrument, you will definitely win from this. And please take also, let's say, philosophy and music in general. Just listening to jazz music and classical music, that would enlarge you, enrich you tremendously. So, with the musician, let's say a musician or a student of music takes an instrument that he or she loves the most. And then we take several, 2 more instruments that are very close to this, the one which we love the most. It could be, if it's practical examples, if it's about violin, we could take alto, how do we call it in Bratsche in German, so it's a little bit bigger violin. Viola or cello, we can take these 3 instruments. If it's jazz, we could have trumpet, trombone, and some other instrument, piano, which I used broadly in jazz. So then you improvise which other instruments you would like to learn also, and they will give a lot to your main skill. But the most important, that you will not have boredom, because you will be switching back and forth to different instruments, and then they will make you really poeticized. So then we need to decide on the position of our body as to that music instrument, and it will be different position. So we need to see how best musicians, what kind of position they take in order to play on their favorite instruments. And also there are books about that. So the position, that is the pre-stage. Then we start working on movements. And as Aristotle told, we need to divide every smallest movement into 3 stages. If it's on trumpet, first of all, we need to learn how to press these valves, for example. If it's on the violin, we need to understand the movements of our fingers and also this hand. So these are like basic, the first steps, the first movements of our, let's say, of our body in order to produce the first sounds. When we are done with that stage, then we move to the next one. This is word movements, or this is the stage when we connect already these small movements into bigger ones. If it's about music, so it will be not just ta 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 da. So we can use ta 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 pa 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 pa. I forgot who wrote. I think it's from Mahler, Symphony 5. Okay, so you understand that now we play a little bit longer, like texts, several texts here. Here we moved after this, working on this stage. We start, and this is there are a lot of etudes, so-called exercises for this stage, in classical music literature. This stage, passage techniques. This is when we start playing longer, when a musician or when we start playing longer text of music. And if it's if you use sheet music, so we can play already quite good etudes for a page or 2 or 3 or 5. So we can maybe learn sonata or certain capriccios. So this is a passage technique. And here we start playing already longer text or playing concerts. This is about those people who take a classical, let's say classical music. For jazz musician, it would be passage technique would come down to playing famous, let's say, pieces of music, and it's important for them also to learn on this stage to pick up the rhythm and also the harmony of the music which is played, and to get involved and to perform with other musicians. Simultaneous reading in understanding. This is exactly what I explained about jazz musician, but those who play classical music from sheet music, they start reading music and playing at the same time. Practical execution. This is when they participate in concerts, when they play concerts. Okay, this is for musicians. Let's take let's say the same approach to programmers or those who learn programming. For example, we decided somehow we feel great love to programming. So then we need to choose not just one language, not only Java, but also in this cultural logical group of subjects we need to pick up, let's say, C++ or Python or some other languages that somehow appealing to us. Okay, so we choose them, and plus we add to this cultural logical group of subjects, we add also music and philosophy here. So we have that preparation for this stage is that we need to collect some books, we need to understand a little bit about programming, or to have some idea about program, what we need for that. Then what movement sounds? It's when we learn, I assume that we as those who speak English, when we learn the first let's say letters or the first signs in programming languages. Okay, and here we can pronounce them, and in that way it's just very, very basic, the lowest level of, or the first steps in programming. Later on, when we start understanding, when we learn a little bit like the basic, let's say, alphabet for programming, then on the second stage we start connecting them already into word movements, or it would be, I can already write here hello world. So the third stage, and we are working on this stage, we develop word lists, and that is all terminology that is available in those three programming languages that I mentioned about, or in other programming languages, but it should be three of them, because then we can keep up our interest. We have a lot of space for changing and for learning from other sources, and also we can compare. So passage technique, it's when we start reading text, programming text, or code, in other words. So here we start also trying to read like big long codes and trying to understand them. On this stage 4, when this is when we already read the code, we understand what it means, we understand almost everything, but there are still little flaws, little bugs, I would say. But we are working on that. Then practical application is when we start using that programming, those programming skills, those programming languages in our, let's say, activity. We can program something. That was long. Just watch 5 minutes and then you can watch the rest. If you like it, put the like and put your questions, and bye-bye. Good luck.